house I grew up in sits on a hill above Little Traverse Bay, a tall, narrow place with peeling white clapboard and a porch that has sagged a little more every year of my life, and the last good light of a Michigan autumn was coming sideways through the dust as I knelt on the attic floor and opened the shoebox that destroyed the story I had told myself for 15 years. Outside, the lake was that hard pewter color it goes in October. Inside, it was just me and the boxes, and the smell of an old house that no longer had anyone living in it, and a bundle of envelopes tied with kitchen string that I almost threw away without looking. I am so glad I looked, and I will never forgive myself for how long it took me to. My name is Nora. I am 40 years old, and I work as a postpartum doula here in Petoskey, Michigan. I spend my days in the homes of brand new mothers, helping them through the rawest, most overwhelmed weeks of their lives, holding the baby so they can shower, telling them they are doing better than they think. It is good work, tender work, and I have wondered lately whether I was drawn to it because of the thing I am about to tell you. Because somewhere in me, I have always been trying to take care of a sister or be the sister that I lost. But I am getting ahead of myself. Here is the story I grew up inside of. There were two of us, my sister Beth and me, 6 years apart. Our father was gone early and not worth discussing, and so it was the three of us, our mother, Beth, and me, in that narrow house on the hill. And then, when I was 17 and Beth was 23, Beth left. She left fast, over the course of what seemed to me a single, terrible week, and there was a fight, a bad one, behind our mother's closed bedroom door that I could only hear the shape of and not the words. And then Beth was gone, with 2 suitcases, and she did not come back. Not for my high school graduation, not for the holidays, not ever. And my mother, weeping at the kitchen table, gave me the story that I would carry for the next 15 years like a creed. That Beth was selfish. That Beth had chosen herself over this family. That Beth had abandoned us. Abandoned me, her little sister who worshipped her, and had not looked back and was not worth waiting for. You have to understand what Beth was to me before all of that, because it is the measure of what was taken. When you are the little one and there are 6 years between you, your big sister is not quite a sibling and not quite a parent. She is something better than both, a kind of private weather system you live inside. Beth braided my hair before school. Beth taught me to ride a bike on the cracked road below the house, running behind me with her hand on the seat and lying about when she let go. Beth read to me at night in a blanket fort when the house downstairs got loud in the way it sometimes did, a loudness I never quite understood as a child and understand all too well now. She was the warmest thing in that narrow house, and then one week she was simply gone, and the warmth went with her, and I was told the warmth had chosen to leave me. Imagine being told that the safest person in your childhood had looked at you and decided you were not worth staying for. That is the lie I swallowed at 17. That is the lie I built a whole self on top of. So I stopped waiting. That is the part I have to live with. I was 17, and I believed my grieving mother completely. Why wouldn't I? And I took the abandonment she handed me, and I made it mine. I let my love for Beth curdle into something hard and protective, because hard is easier to carry than heartbroken. I became the daughter who stayed. That became my whole identity, honestly. I was the good one, the loyal one, the one who did not leave our mother alone on that hill the way Beth had. I built 15 years on it. I tended my mother through her long decline. I lived 20 minutes away. I was there for every appointment and every bad night. And underneath all of it ran a quiet, self-righteous river. I stayed. Beth left. I am the one who loved this family enough to stay. And here is the quiet poison in a story like that. It gave me something. That is why it held so well for so long. Being the one who stayed was not only a wound, it was a role, and the role had its rewards. It made me good. It made me loyal. It gave me a clean place to stand and someone to stand above. Every time my mother sighed about the daughter who had abandoned her, I felt the warm, secret glow of being the daughter who had not. And that glow was addictive, and it cost me nothing that I could see. I did not go looking for Beth's side of things, in 15 years, not once, and I told myself that was because she did not deserve the effort. The truth is uglier and more human than that. I did not go looking because some part of me did not want to find anything that might knock me off the good clean place I was standing on. The story served me. That is the most uncomfortable thing I have had to admit in all of this, that I was not only a victim of the lie, I was, in a small and willing way, its beneficiary, and so I never once thought to question it. My mother died this past summer, after a long illness, with me holding her hand. And a few months later, I started the work no one warns you is the second grief, the emptying of the house. 40 years of a family pressed into one narrow building, and all of it now mine alone to sort, because there was no one else. There had never been anyone else. Beth had seen to that, I thought, as I climbed up to the attic that October afternoon. Even this, even the boxes, I am doing alone, because of her. Emptying a family house is an archaeology of a particular kind of sadness. You handle every object your people ever decided to keep, and each one asks you a small question you can no longer answer. I worked through that house room by room for weeks. The good dishes used twice a year, my mother's careful handwriting on the spice jars, my own childhood drawings she had saved, which surprised me because I had not known she saved anything of mine, had not known she was sentimental about me at all. It softened me toward her, that work. In the weeks before the attic, I kept finding small evidences of a love I had doubted, and I kept thinking, see, she was not all hardness, she kept your drawings. I was busy those weeks, gently revising my mother upward in my heart. Which is its own dark joke looking back, because I was doing it in the very house where the real evidence of who she had been was waiting in a shoebox under the eaves, and I climbed up to it at last on an ordinary afternoon with my guard all the way down. The shoebox was in the back, under the eaves, behind a broken lamp and a bag of my mother's old church bulletins. It was an ordinary shoebox, soft and furred with age, and inside it was a bundle of envelopes, dozens of them, tied together with kitchen string in a neat cross, and the moment I lifted them out and saw the handwriting, I knew it. I knew it in my body before my mind would say it, because I had grown up seeing that handwriting on birthday cards and grocery lists. It was Beth's. Every envelope was addressed to me, in Beth's hand, to Nora, and every one of them had been opened, and not one of them had ever reached me. I sat down right there on the dusty floor, and I untied the string, and I read the letters my sister had written to me, one for nearly every month of the 15 years I spent hating her, and that our mother had quietly intercepted, opened, read, and hidden, so that I would never know my sister had been reaching for me the entire time. I cannot tell you everything they said. They are too much mine now, and some things, after this, I am going to keep. But I will tell you the shape of them, because the shape is the whole truth I had been denied. They began right after she left, the first one postmarked only 2 weeks after those 2 suitcases went out the door. Nora, it began, I know how this looks, and I know what she's going to tell you, but I need you to hold on and let me explain when you're older. And then, month after month, year after year, she explained. She told me she missed me. She asked about school, about my friends, about a boy I had liked that year. Things she could only have known if she had been listening hard before she left. She sent me, in those envelopes, birthday wishes for every single birthday, drawings, a pressed flower once, $20 folded into a sheet of paper when she clearly had little to spare. She wrote, over and over, in 100 different ways, I did not leave you. I had to leave her. Those are not the same thing. Please know they are not the same thing. I read them in order, which I think saved me, because it meant I lived those 15 years over again in a single afternoon, but corrected, the true version laid down over the false one. There was a letter for the graduation she had not, it turned out, skipped out of indifference. She had not even known the date, because the person who knew it was making sure she knew nothing. There was a letter the year I got married, congratulating me on a wedding she had heard about secondhand and far too late to come to, written with a brightness that broke my heart because I could feel the effort in it, the swallowed hurt of a woman celebrating from the outside of a life she had been locked out of. She never once turned bitter on the page. That is the thing I keep coming back to. 15 years of writing into what must have felt like total silence, 15 years of no reply from a sister she had to assume had simply chosen to hate her, and she just kept writing, kept being warm, kept saying, "I'm here when you're ready." I do not know that I would have had that kind of faith. I am not sure I have ever loved anyone the way my sister kept loving me into a void. And slowly, across those letters, the real story assembled itself in front of me on that attic floor, and it was nothing like the creed I had been raised on. Beth had not abandoned us. Beth had been driven out, and she had gone in order to protect me. Our mother, and this is the hardest thing I have ever had to write, and I have turned it over all autumn looking for another explanation, and there isn't one. Our mother was not the grieving victim of the story she told. Our mother was a deeply troubled woman, controlling and cruel in ways that I, as the baby, the favored one, had been largely shielded from, and Beth had not been shielded at all. Beth, the older one, had absorbed the worst of it for years, had stood between our mother and me, had taken the rage so I would not have to. And the fight behind the bedroom door, the terrible week, that had been Beth finally breaking, finally telling our mother that she could not survive in that house one more year, and our mother responding the way that kind of person does, with an ultimatum. "Leave, then. Leave, and you do not get to take your sister's love with you. I will see to that." And she had seen to it for 15 years. Every letter Beth sent, our mother took from the mailbox, read, and locked in a shoebox. Every reaching hand intercepted. My mother engineered my hatred of my sister deliberately, patiently, as revenge against the daughter who had dared to leave her, and she used me as the weapon, because she knew that losing me was the one thing that would truly punish Beth. I was not a daughter in that arrangement. I was a hostage. And I never knew it, and I spent my one wild, precious portion of love on resenting the person who least deserved it, exactly as I had been engineered to do. Everything rearranged, sitting there on that floor. The loud nights downstairs that Beth used to build blanket forts against. I understood now what the loudness had been, and who had been standing in front of it so that it never reached me. The way Beth had always seemed older than she was, tighter, quicker to flinch, which I had read as just her personality, and now understood as the posture of someone permanently bracing. The fact that the worst of our mother had somehow never landed on me, which I had always taken as proof that I was the easy daughter, the lovable one, when the truth was that there had been a body between me and the storm for 17 years, and her name was Beth, and the week she finally could not stand in that spot one more day was the week I was taught to call her selfish. I had been protected my entire childhood by the very person I was raised to despise, and I had never once felt the protection, because the whole point of that kind of love is that the one being protected never feels a thing. Now here is where I have to be fair. Even now, even to my mother, because you have come to expect the honest version, and the honest version refuses easy villains. And I have learned this autumn that even this is not as simple as monster and saint. My mother was, I have come to believe, a profoundly damaged person, almost certainly shaped by her own history that I will never fully know, acting out of a terror of abandonment so total that she would rather raise her younger daughter on a lie than risk being left alone with the truth. That does not excuse it. I want to be very clear that I am not excusing it. What she did to Beth, and to me, and to the 15 years we lost, was a genuine and sustained cruelty. But it was the cruelty of a frightened, broken woman, and not of a cartoon, and holding both the enormity of the harm and the brokenness behind it, is the only way I have found to carry this without it poisoning me. I can grieve the mother I held in her last hours, and condemn what she did to my sister. Both of those live in me now. They will live in me for the rest of my life. But the part of this story that matters most is not my mother. It is Beth, because the very night I found those letters, sitting on that floor at 40 years old, I did the thing I should have been able to do at 17, the thing my mother spent 15 years making sure I would never do. I found the return address on the most recent envelope, only 2 years old, and I wrote it down with shaking hands, and the next morning, I drove 4 hours to a small town downstate, and I knocked on my sister's door. She opened it. She is 53 now, gray coming into her hair, lines on her face I did not get to watch arrive, and she looked at me, and I watched her understand who I was. This grown woman on her porch she had last seen as a teenager, and before I could say a single one of the things I had rehearsed for 4 hours in the car, her face simply broke, and she said my name like a question she had stopped letting herself ask. "Nora?" And I said, "I found them. I found all the letters, I know. I'm so sorry. I'm so sorry it took me 15 years." And my sister pulled me into that house and held on to me on her own threshold like she was afraid I'd dissolve, and we stood there, 2 middle-aged women, sobbing for everything that woman had stolen from us, and for the simple fact that against every effort to prevent it, here we finally were. We sat in her kitchen most of that first day, and she filled in the years for me, gently, watching my face to see how much I could take. She had married. She had a daughter, a niece I had never met, a 15-year-old who had grown up hearing about the little sister downstate, kept alive in stories by a mother who never stopped believing I would one day knock on the door. That undid me almost more than the letters did, that I had a niece who knew my name, who had been told good things about me by the sister I had spent her whole lifetime resenting. Beth had not just kept loving me, she had raised her own child to love me too, had kept a place set for me at a table I did not even know existed, year after year, against all the evidence that I was never coming. When her daughter came home from school that afternoon and Beth said, "This is your Aunt Nora, finally," I had to step out onto the porch for a minute so the child would not have to watch a grown woman come completely apart. We are making up for it now, as much as lost time can ever be made up for, which is both more and less than you would hope. She is my sister again. I have a sister. At 40, after 15 years of believing I was alone in the world, I have someone who knew me when I was small, who remembers our father, who shares the strange, specific weather of having grown up in that narrow house on the hill. We talk almost every day. We are careful with each other, and a little shy still, 2 people learning a relationship in middle age that should have grown up slowly alongside us. There is grief threaded all through the joy of it, grief for the graduations and the holidays, and the ordinary Tuesday phone calls we will never get back. But there is so much joy. I did not lose my sister after all. I only lost 15 years, and a person can build a great deal on whatever years are left. If you have ever been handed a story about a family member, that they left, that they didn't care, that they abandoned you, and built years of your life on top of it without ever checking whether it was true, then this story is for you. One word in the comments, if it found you. Gone. Just that. It is for everyone who was told that someone was gone, who let that word do its hard work in their heart for years, and who maybe, just maybe, owes it to themselves to find out whether it was ever really true. Subscribe for new stories, real patterns, full narratives, the long game. 2 small pieces of wisdom from this one before I go. The first, be very careful about whose version of a family rupture you accept, especially when the person telling you the story is the one who benefits most from your believing it. The people who get blamed in families are not always the people who did wrong. Very often, the one who gets labeled selfish, difficult, the one who left, is simply the one who finally refused to keep absorbing something the rest of you never had to see. Before you sign on to hating someone on another person's say-so, ask the simplest, most dangerous question there is. Who is telling me this, and what do they get if I believe it? I did not ask that question for 15 years. It would have cost me one uncomfortable afternoon, and it would have given me back half my life with my sister. The second, leaving and abandoning are not the same thing, and learning to tell them apart may be one of the most important things you ever do. Sometimes, the person who walks away is the selfish one, and that is real, and it happens. But sometimes, the person who walks away is the one carrying the heaviest thing in the whole family, walking it as far from you as they can so that it never lands on you, and from where you stand, a back disappearing down the road looks exactly the same either way. You cannot tell from the leaving alone. You have to find out what they were walking away from, and what they were trying to spare you, before you decide what their leaving meant. My sister's back going out that door was the most loving thing she ever did for me, and I spent 15 years calling it the cruelest. Do not make my mistake. Find out what the leaving was for before you let it break your heart for the wrong reason. Sometimes, the person who walked away was the one carrying the heaviest thing, walking it as far from you as they could, so be slow to call it abandonment until you know what they were trying to spare you. I'll see you next time.